Right now, we're going to get a discussion for you on the internationalization of the Chinese currency. It's been on a path for quite some time, but where are we now and what can we see in the future? Well, joining us to discuss this are Jonathan Batten. He's a professor of finance at Monash University, and Chilo is also with us. He's a Greater China senior strategist at BNP Paribas Investment Partners here in Asia. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Now, I have been hearing some things about you, Jonathan. Apparently, you are the international currency expert. Would you say that's a fair description?
Absolutely,
I don't know.
absolutely.
So you've been doing a piece of research, haven't you? Tell us about the context of this research. Why are you doing this, and what are the things that you found?
Okay, thank you very much. If you go back 20 years, the Japanese yen was people thought that the Japanese yen would displace the US dollar significantly in international markets. That never happened, and so in very much today we have similar opportunities in that the Chinese currency, the RMB or the yuan, through trade and its enhanced role in international markets, has the possibility of displacing the US dollar. What we do, which is quite significant, is the fact that we use SWIFT message data to capture the trade settlement side of the currency internationalization process. And this is very different to the approaches that have been adopted by other researchers, which typically use the data from the central banks and the IMF, for example.
So take us through this research. How long did it last? What are the steps that you've done, and what did you find?
Okay, so just recently, in fact last week, an international organization called the Bank for International Settlements released new information on the role of currencies worldwide. Our findings basically confirm the significance of the RMB in the same way that the BIS do. However, the key point here is that because the SWIFT data is available at a much higher frequency, we're able to track in much greater detail the progress and path of RMB internationalization. So, for example, as regulatory reform has taken place in China, we're able to assess the effect that this has had on the greater role of the RMB worldwide. So the topic of our discussion here at Sibos, in fact, is the RMB at a tipping point? The quick answer to that question is no. There is upward momentum, there is growth, but it's still a long way to go before the RMB is going to displace either the euro, the yen, or the US dollar. Thank you.
What would you say?
Well, when I looked at Jonathan's recent research, I'm quite surprised by the fact that the academic research actually echoes to the market research that I've been doing. One salient point that has come out from Jonathan's paper is that the momentum for RMB internationalization has been declining. Now, I've been arguing since day one that the robust momentum of the RMB internationalizing itself cannot sustain for a long time because for good reasons. Now, the evidence from SWIFT data and academic research just underscores that argument. And going forward, I think we should be expecting the momentum to come down further unless something else happened.
What could happen?
Now, something else is the next step for RMB internationalization, which Jonathan's research also touched on. From the market perspective, what we need to see as a next step for deepening RMB internationalization is to have the financial sector liberalized, to have capital flow out of China liberalized, to make it more balanced, the inflow-outflow of capital. Until that happens, trade as a factor for pushing internationalization of RMB has only a limited effect, because there's so much trade you can do and so much RMB that can export from China through trade. But when you opened up the financial sector, it's a whole new world. There are new transactions, new settlements, and so on. So that's what we are expecting in going forward.
What kind of time frame would you put on that?
It's quite difficult to say. Now, Beijing is quite keen in opening up further the financial sector and allowing creation of many RMB-denominated assets offshore. Now, that's a proper step to go forward. But how fast can it go? I don't think the Chinese authorities have a clear idea yet, because behind opening up the financial sector, there's a lot of structural changes, very deep structural changes that needs to be done. And of course, there are momentum going forward, but then there's also resistance to change. So it's sort of a tug of war within the Chinese policy arena. That on the one hand, the authorities want to push it ahead with structural changes, but on the other hand, there are vested interest political groups who want to slow it down or to protect their interests.
What were some of the thoughts that you've been meeting with the delegates here? What have been some of the things that have really resonated with you?
Well, I'll just point out that the RMB, while important, if you look at the BIS statistics, you'll see that there are also other currencies that are emerging as equally important, such as the Mexican peso, the Indian rupee, and the South African rand.
Will they be a real threat, though?
I believe they will be, in the sense that these economies are also undertaking massive regulatory changes as well. So what the current project that myself and my co-author on the paper, Peter Szilagyi, have done is we've looked at the RMB in isolation, but one of the next steps in this process is to look at these other currencies as well. Importantly, though, I think that what Chi was saying is absolutely critical. It's apart from the capital account liberalisation aspects, it's also very important for China to develop its internal financial markets, particularly the corporate bond markets and its derivatives markets. It's if the fact is that risk management is a critical aspect to a currency being internationalised, and as well as that, it needs to be more widely used by everybody, everywhere, not just by a few major corporates and with major capital market transactions.
Chi, do you think the peso and the rupee is actually going to pose a real threat?
Well, actually, I'm going to touch on that point. I don't think the other Asian currencies can pose any threat to the RMB in terms of the usage, international usage, or regional usage of the currency. What's more important is, from my recent research, I found out that the RMB has actually built a block in Asia, which even the Japanese yen didn't do during its heydays. Now, this RMB block comes about in the sense that there's an increasing number of Asian currencies, the pesos, the Singapore dollars, and so on, are following the movement of the RMB, and the correlation between the other Asian currencies and the RMB has been rising through the years. So that's something very important going forward, especially for foreign exchange trading, that the RMB is already one big step ahead of all other Asian currencies in terms of trading, and that will certainly help the internationalization process going forward.
Okay. And Jonathan, you've been doing this research as part of your work with the SWIFT Institute.
Correct.
And you've got this other project that's going on. Where can people find this research and the SWIFT Institute?
So firstly, thank the SWIFT Institute for providing the data and support for the work that we're doing. If you look at the SWIFT Institute website, you will see links there to the research papers in its entirety.
We've got the URL on the screen there, so swiftinstitute.org. Everybody, if you want details on what we've been discussing and some of the other work, academic papers, etc., of the SWIFT Institute, you can go there and find it all online. Thanks to all of you, both of you, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Have you been enjoying the conference so far?
It's been fantastic.
Exactly. Great. Thanks very much to both of you.